Welcome to Global Trends. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world is shifting. Not with armies, but with minerals and oil. In this new era, power is measured not just by military might, but by who controls the resources that fuel our modern lives. The global balance is being redrawn, and the battleground is economic, not territorial. In August 2025, a geopolitical drama unfolds. Canada and China challenge U.S. dominance, striking at the core of American economic power. The world watches as these three giants maneuver for advantage, each move sending ripples through global markets and alliances. These are calculated moves in a high-stakes game of resource control. Every negotiation, every trade deal, is a strategic play in a complex chess match where the stakes are nothing less than global influence. China, king of rare earth elements, tightens its grip, using its near monopoly to shape the future of technology and manufacturing. Its dominance in these critical minerals gives it leverage over industries worldwide, from smartphones to electric vehicles. Meanwhile, Canada, a U.S. ally and energy giant, is caught in the crossfire, leveraging its vast oil and mineral resources amid escalating trade disputes. Its position is both powerful and precarious, as it navigates pressures from both Washington and Beijing. The U.S. faces destabilizing pressures as the modern world runs on materials controlled by a few. American industries, from tech to automotive, depend on a steady flow of these resources, making the nation vulnerable to supply shocks and price spikes. For decades, America relied on global supply chains, trusting that goods and materials would always flow freely. But now, that assumption is under threat, and the consequences are being felt in factories, stores, and homes across the country. China's export controls on critical minerals signal its willingness to use market dominance as a political weapon. These restrictions send shockwaves through industries worldwide, forcing companies and governments to rethink their strategies. Canada's trade tensions with Beijing, especially over canola, reveal the fragility of global relationships. Even agricultural exports become pawns in this larger contest, highlighting how interconnected and vulnerable the world economy truly is. The U.S. scrambles to secure supply chains and rebuild abandoned industries, a monumental, urgent task. Policymakers and business leaders are racing to restore domestic production, but reshaping decades of globalization is no easy feat. The implications reach beyond boardrooms. The stability of industries, consumer costs, and national security all hinge on these resources. Every link in the supply chain is now a potential point of failure, with real consequences for everyday life. America's place in a multipolar world is being tested, as economic interdependence becomes a weapon. The old rules no longer apply, and new alliances are being forged in real time. The vulnerabilities are real, and the stakes have never been higher. In this new era of economic warfare, the outcome will shape the future of nations, and the daily lives of billions. Rare earth elements, 17 metals, are the invisible backbone of modern life. They power everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to the advanced systems in U.S. military hardware. Without them, America's technological edge would vanish. The defense industry relies on rare earths for guidance systems, sensors, and sonar, critical for national security. The green transition also depends on these minerals, vital for wind turbines and electric motors. As nations race to cut carbon emissions, demand for rare earths is set to soar by 60% by 2040. Control over these minerals means control over future innovation and industrial leadership. Whoever dominates rare earths shapes the pace and cost of technological progress. These elements are the foundation of our technological society and the new frontline in global competition. China's rare earth dominance is no accident. It's the result of a decades-long strategy. Since the 1980s, Beijing invested heavily in mining and refining, undercutting global competitors. Today, China controls 61% of extraction and 92% of refining worldwide. Recent export controls and technology bans have tightened its grip, creating global supply chain anxiety. These moves are a direct response to Western efforts to curb China's tech rise, especially in semiconductors. By threatening supply, China wields rare earths as a political weapon, forcing the West to rethink its dependencies. The mere threat of a ban disrupts markets and exposes the risks of relying on a single supplier. China's economic statecraft has turned industrial advantage into global leverage. The United States faces a critical vulnerability that few Americans realize. After decades of outsourcing, the nation now relies on China for nearly 3/4 of its rare earth minerals, which are essential for everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to advanced military technology. This dependence isn't just an economic inconvenience, it's a strategic weakness that China is increasingly willing to exploit, using its dominance as leverage in global trade and geopolitics. In response, Washington is scrambling to reverse course. There's rare bipartisan agreement on the urgent need to reshore critical mineral supply chains and reduce this dangerous reliance. New laws, such as the Critical Mineral Security Act, are being passed to jumpstart domestic mining and refining, aiming to secure the nation's future. But rebuilding this once thriving industry is a slow, expensive process, complicated by regulatory red tape and environmental concerns that can delay progress for years. Projects like Colorado's new rare earth refinery offer a glimmer of hope, signaling that the U.S. is taking steps toward self-sufficiency, but true independence is still years, if not decades, away. Meanwhile, American researchers are turning to unconventional sources like coal ash in search of a domestic supply, hoping to transform what was once an environmental liability into a valuable strategic asset. If successful, this innovation could help solve two problems at once: cleaning up waste and securing critical minerals. Extracting rare earths from coal ash is still in the experimental stage, but if it works, it could be a game-changer for U.S. industry and security. Until these efforts bear fruit, America's dependence on China remains a stark reality, leaving both its economy and national defense exposed to potential disruption. The race to close this strategic gap is urgent, complex, and far from over, demanding innovation, investment, and unwavering resolve. Canada stands at the crossroads of the global resource struggle. As America's top oil supplier and a close ally, it anchors North American stability. But Canada also holds vast rare earth reserves, making it a potential Western alternative to China. Beijing's recent tariffs on Canadian canola highlight the risks of siding with the U.S. in this rivalry. In response, Canada is investing billions to build a critical minerals industry, aiming to become a key player in processing and refining. This strategy supports both its economy and Western efforts to reduce dependence on China. Canada's dual role as energy supplier and future minerals powerhouse makes it indispensable to the U.S. Its ability to balance these relationships will shape the future of global supply chains. Rising resource tensions have sparked a wave of Western alliance building. At the 2025 G7 summit in Canada, leaders pledged a critical minerals action plan to counter China's dominance. Yet, economic ties with China complicate the path forward. A draft U.S.-China deal emerged. China would supply rare earths in exchange for the U.S. easing student visa restrictions. This uneasy cooperation underscores the complexity of their rivalry. Meanwhile, global markets reel from uncertainty. Oil prices slump, stocks rebound, and volatility reigns. Nations hedge their bets, building resilient supply chains while maintaining ties with China. Alliances like the G7 are now vital for economic defense. The world is learning that economic interdependence can be both a shield and a source of conflict. Dire warnings abound, but is the U.S. truly on the verge of collapse? Headlines and pundits paint a picture of impending disaster, fueling anxiety across the nation. But to understand the real story, we need to look beyond the panic and examine the facts. The crisis has exposed deep vulnerabilities, outsourced industries and reliance on a rival for critical materials. Decades of offshoring have left key sectors hollowed out, and the U.S. now finds itself dependent on foreign suppliers for essential goods, from electronics to rare earth minerals. Yet America's capacity for adaptation is formidable. Throughout history, the nation has faced adversity and emerged stronger, driven by innovation and a relentless spirit of reinvention. Bipartisan resolve and new legislation mark a turning point. Leaders from both parties are coming together, recognizing the urgent need to rebuild domestic industries and secure the nation's future. The U.S. has untapped resources and world-class innovation. Coal ash extraction is just one example. New technologies are unlocking value from overlooked materials, and American scientists are leading the way in sustainable solutions. Allies like Canada are crucial for building secure North American supply chains. By strengthening partnerships, the U.S. can reduce its dependence on rivals and create a more resilient economic network. The G7's coordinated strategy adds further strength. Working with global partners, the U.S. is helping to shape a new era of economic cooperation and shared security. The future will be shaped by competing economic blocs, not a single dominant power. As the world becomes more interconnected, collaboration and competition will define the next chapter of global growth. While the risks are real, talk of collapse is overblown. Experts point to America's enduring strengths, its dynamic workforce, entrepreneurial culture, and ability to adapt in the face of change. America is being forced to reinvent itself, turning crisis into opportunity. Across the country, new industries are rising, and investments in clean energy and technology are laying the groundwork for a more secure future. The current turmoil is a catalyst for rebuilding industrial strength and securing a sustainable future. Rather than collapse, the U.S. stands at the threshold of renewal, ready to meet the challenges ahead with resilience and determination.